morning, guys. Today's class is reading skills. That is a part of English language and communication skills. In the reading skills, you know here how important it is. You know, academic reading is different from reading for research, reading for competitive exams, and reading for critical analysis. Okay, even the questions being asked in competitive exams under reading skills is different. They give us one paragraph and give us 4 to 5 questions under it, but these questions are different from academic questions. Now let us know here what type of questions are being asked in reading skills. Okay, first if we want to know the types of questions being asked under reading comprehension in competitive exams, see, these are the general questions being asked. First one is the main idea or theme-based questions. Next one is view of the author type of questions. Next one is choosing the correct or wrong statement on the basis of the given passage. This comes under factual questions. Okay, and next one is supporting idea questions. Next one is inferential questions. Next one is style and tone based questions. Like this, different types of questions are being asked under reading comprehension. Okay, now let us see the main idea theme based questions. What does it mean? Main idea or theme based questions, these are also called as global questions. If there are 5 questions under one reading passage, definitely there will be one main idea or theme based questions, okay, which is called global question. So it is generally here like this. What is the main idea of the paragraph? What is the central theme of the paragraph? Or what does the author intend to say in the paragraph? So almost this one, okay, main idea or author type of questions, author's view of the author type of questions, both are similar actually. So sometimes they may ask here, what does the author intend to say in this paragraph? Or what is the opinion of the author in this paragraph? Right? And these are called here main idea questions or theme based questions or global questions. If there are 5 questions, one question will be definitely main idea question or theme based question. Right? Have you got it here? The type of question is, what does the author intend to say in this paragraph? Or what is the opinion of the author in this paragraph? What is the theme of the paragraph? What is the central idea of the paragraph? Okay, such questions are called main idea based questions or global questions. Next one is here, choosing the correct or wrong statement on the basis of the given passage. This may be factual question or sometimes inferential question. What is the factual question here? They will give some statements under the paragraph, and these statements are not exact statements of the paragraph. Those are rewritten, those are twisted statements. Okay, structurally they may be twisted. Grammatically here they may be changed. Okay, they give 4 statements and ask us which of the following statement is true according to the passage, or which of the following statement is false according to the passage, or which of the following statement is not given according to the passage. So it may be true or false or not given questions. Usually here these questions are being asked in the competitive exams, okay, like IELTS, TOEFL, GRE. Even if you go to civil services here in CSAT exam, here you may get questions like this, right? In placement exams, so these questions are very, very common, right? Next one is supporting idea questions. So here the students are tested to identify the main idea of the paragraph and supporting idea questions. What is the main idea? What are the supporting points to that main idea? So when you read one paragraph, just if you are able to identify the main point of the paragraph and supporting points of the paragraph, you will be successful most of the time. Right? For example, okay, if there is one lesson or one essay, that essay may have 8 paragraphs or 10 paragraphs. How do you read that lesson? If you start reading that lesson line by line, sentence by sentence for the first time, you will be bored, you get boredom, and you may not comprehend the paragraph well. Is it clear? And you may dislike your reading, so there is a chance of quitting the reading attempt. To avoid that, what we should do here when we go with reading one essay or one lesson? Generally here, most of the students here, they don't know here why they feel bored while reading, and they quit reading here activity because of various reasons. Let me tell you what are the reasons here. First thing is here, when you start reading line by line, you come across some unfamiliar words within the text, within the paragraph. If there is one unfamiliar word or 2 words or 3 words, okay, according to the context, you can guess the meaning. It's okay. But if there are many unfamiliar words, if the topic is completely new, if your mind is not tuned to think in that domain, it becomes very difficult here to continue reading. So, don't start a reading of any essay or any lesson line by line. Then what you have to do? First, just see the headings and subheadings of each paragraph. Sometimes you may not have your subheadings. Then what you should do? First you have to read the main heading. Then read only first paragraph, that is introductory paragraph. Then read just one sentence of each paragraph. What is the one sentence? Especially the first sentence of each paragraph. Just read first sentence of each paragraph. So by doing this, what is the result here? For example, if you read an introduction, what will be there in introduction? The topic is introduced, right? And not only the topic is introduced, but you will get some points, 1 or 2 points here regarding the remaining paragraphs. Okay, what the remaining paragraphs are going to deal with. Just by reading introduction, you can guess here what the entire essay is about, right? Just read that one. Read introductory paragraph. After that, here read only first sentence of each paragraph. First sentence of second para, first sentence of third para. Why I am saying here first sentence of each para? Generally, each paragraph deals with only one main point, and that main point usually lies in the first sentence of the paragraph. That main point comes in the first sentence, followed by the supporting sentences, supporting points. Each paragraph deals with only one main point, and that is given generally in the first sentence of the paragraph. If not, it comes in the last sentence, right? If you know the mechanism of writing a paragraph, remember that main point comes in the first sentence, and that main point is defended with some examples. These examples are called premises or supporting sentences. This is one method. In another method of writing here, first they will give premises or examples in the beginning, and in the last here they will come to a conclusion based on the examples, based on the premises. Okay, they will come to a conclusion, and that concluding statement comes in the last sentence. That is called main point. Okay, so that's why the main point usually lies either in the first sentence of the paragraph or in the last sentence of the paragraph, right? Is it clear? So if you have this idea in your mind, Yeah, just while reading, in the initial stage, read first sentence of each paragraph. If you don't get the main idea in the first sentence, go to the last sentence. Like that, read all paragraphs. Take just 1 or 2 minutes to read first sentence or last sentence of each paragraph. So take 1 or 2 minutes to read one sentence in each paragraph. So that what happens, your mind will be tuned to think in that domain, in that context. Once your mind is tuned to think in that domain, what is the advantage here? So you will start here thinking in that context. When you start reading here, second time line by line, when you come across some unfamiliar words, so your mind is already tuned. So when you come across some unfamiliar words, so you can easily guess the meaning of that unfamiliar word according to the context. Because here, if you don't have any context, you start thinking from different angles and you get confused. But once your mind is tuned to think in that domain, in that context, here, just unfamiliar words meaning can be guessed easily. Right? So you have to develop this type of habit. Okay? And you can use it here for note making also. In note making here, first, when you read each paragraph here, point out what is the main point. What is the main point of each para? And what are the supporting points? Main points and supporting points. If you develop here notes like this, here the picture comes very clear. You get clear concept of each paragraph. Okay? So this is the method to be followed here while preparing notes also. Right? And next, when we come to the inference-based questions. Inference means hidden, which is indirectly set. Okay? So under each paragraph, there will be 1 or 2 inferential questions. To attempt these questions, just if you understand the superficial meaning of each sentence is not enough. Okay? You have to get the inner meaning, hidden meaning of the sentences so that you can answer these inference-based questions. Right? Next one is the style or tone-based questions. In style or tone-based questions, sometimes in some competitive exams, they ask here, what is the tone of the author? Or what is the style used in the paragraph by the writer? Is it clear? So here you should have some idea regarding the tone or style. So sometimes here, to convince the readers, we use one style. To provoke thoughts among the readers, we use certain types. Is it clear? Right? For persuading, okay, one type of style. For provoking thought here, one type of style. Is it clear? Sometimes rhetoric styles, sarcastic style. Is it clear? Different types of styles are used in writing paragraphs by the writers. Okay? So we can discuss all this here. Today's class here deals with the main idea or theme-based questions or global questions. Now, here is an example and how to attempt here main idea or theme-based questions. For example, you have to remember these points. First, the passage will be followed by a question with certain statements which may or may not be the central idea of the given passage. They will give some statements, 4 statements. Among them, only one statement here will be the main idea of the given passage. Choose the statement that will best qualify as the central idea discussed in the passage. It can also be asked for the most suitable title for the passage, which also correspond to the central theme in the passage. Sometimes there will be 3-4 titles. Okay, 3-4 titles will be opted. But among those 3-4 titles, which is most suitable? Right? They will ask like that. Another form in which this type of question can be asked is, which of the following statement is best supported by the passage? In this question, you may be given statements more than one of which can be inferred from the passage, but only one statement will be best supported by the passage, which will be the central theme of the passage. Right? Now let us see here one example. Just read this small paragraph and then attempt the given question. Let us read this one. But the realists have something to say too. They say that in the battle called life, what we need is not sportsmanship but strength, not humility but self-confidence, not altruism but a resolute intelligence, that not justice or sportsmanship but power is that arbiter of all differences and destinies. This was expressed bluntly by Bismarck, who said there was no altruism among nations and that modern issues are not decided by votes and rhetoric but by blood and iron. If life is a struggle for existence in which the fittest survive, then strength is the ultimate virtue and weakness the only fault. Good is that which survives, which wins, and bad is that which gives way and fails. There is no room to the sporting spirit in this world. Now see here. The passage is mainly concerned with, read the options, Bismarck's opinions about nations, definition of good and bad, musings on how life should be lived, what the realists have to say. Here, see this one here. In the beginning only we have some hint. The realists have something to say. Here is one hint. So, we can think of option D. But you see, so here totally what is that here? See also, you see the option C, musings on how life should be lived. Means finally what he says, there is no room to the sporting spirit in this world. So, what we need is not sportsmanship, but strength, not humility, but self-confidence, not altruism, but resolute intelligence. Okay, that not justice or sportsmanship, but power is the arbiter of all differences and destinies. So, yeah, this says here how we should live here, how we should struggle for survival. Is it clear? Right? So, overall here, okay, overall this paragraph, okay, we can say here musings on how life should be lived. This is the most appropriate answer. Is it clear? So simply, okay, realists have to say many things. Is it clear? But here this paragraph deals with how life should be lived. Musings on how life should be lived for survival. Is it clear? Right? In these two here, in the option D and C, here we get confused here. But realists have to say so many things. But this paragraph mainly deals with how life should be lived. Is it clear? So answer C is the correct one. Okay? Next one. So, there is this ambiguity about force. We are never sure that can be used for the purpose of justice. Voltaire said quite rightly, war is the greatest of all crimes, yet there is no aggressor who does not perform his crime with the pretext of justice. It is true that on occasions force may be employed by the oppressed against the aggressors who exploit them. Thus, history records the success of the Grid against the Persian invaders, or the Italians against the Austrians, or the Afghans against the British. But the record of the triumph of right over might is meager. See this sentence. record of the triumph of right over might is meager. We must not forget that might has won many more victories over right during untold centuries. So, got the meaning here? So, what it is about here? Generally, we think in this paragraph, what is discussed here? So, if somebody is suppressed, right? The people who are oppressed, who are suppressed by the aggressors, by the exploiters. Generally, when we are exploited more and more, is it clear? Then we will revolt against them. Is it clear? Generally, if you see the history, so many revolts will be like this. But remember that if we see the record of the triumph of right over might is meager. Means always you don't think here right will win over the might. Might means strength. Is it clear? If you see the record, most of the time right may not win. Might only has won many more victories. Is it clear? So from this one, here think of the most appropriate title for the passage. So the right or the might. So here right, might words came here, no doubt. But what about here? What is the relationship between the right or might? Okay. War is the greatest crime, greatest of crime. This is option B. Next, force and justice, an ambiguous relation. So we don't know here. Generally we think here justice prevails finally. Justice will win over force. But it is not always true. Ambiguity is there. Is it clear? Ambiguity means confusion. Generally we think here justice, finally justice will win. But it is not always so. So the relationship between force and justice, is ambiguous. Right? Why it is ambiguous? Generally we think here whoever wins is right. Is it clear? And whoever wins finally, we think here justice is with them only. But it is not always true. Means there is an ambiguity. Means confusion. So here C is the most appropriate answer for this one. How to identify? You have to think like this. So from the last two lines here, you can come to this conclusion. What did I say here in the beginning? To attempt the theme-based questions or global idea-based questions, concentrate on the first sentence or the last sentence. Is it clear? So here we got the answer in the last sentences. Right? Next one. Let us go to the third para. Passage 3. Too much power given to any organized body is harmful to the government. This is true in the case of press also. It is always desirable that the press of a country should be controlled by its government. It may happen that the press may be captured by any one party and the country plunged into civil war. A powerful press can create a revolution against the government at any time it likes. The press sometimes embattles international relations. An example of this can be seen in the Italian press. It was published in the Italian press some years ago that the Great Britain was supplying arms and ammunition to Abyssinia. This rumor spread a great deal of hatred in Italians against Englishmen, and a special guard had to be placed upon the British ambassador at Rome. Now here see the question here. Which of the following statements is best supported by the given passage? Right? The first one is Italians hate Englishmen. Second one, if the press has too much power, it can become harmful. Right? So here some hint is there. Next, press is a powerful medium and has a capacity to influence masses to a large extent. So C, B and C. Next, press can cause a civil war in a country. If we see these four options, almost four options are true according to the passage. All four options are true according to the passage. But which is the best title? Is it clear? Which is the best statement? Right? Which is the best statement here? C here. Answer C is the best statement. So it covers all here. Press is a powerful medium. Powerful medium means it can become harmful or useful. Okay? It can cause civil war. Right? Powerful medium itself, okay, gives all the meanings of, okay, it can become harmful or it can become useful or it can cause civil war. Is it clear? And, right? So, these three is among the three statements here. This press is a powerful medium, right? And has a capacity to influence masses to a large extent. This is the main statement. Okay? Now, where is it here? Here. A powerful press can create revolutions against the government. Is it clear? Right? Next. And it is very powerful also. Next one. Let us come to the fourth one. Next. In the fourth one, see here, answer is already given, A. It is very interesting to study the mind of the advertiser and the motives of human mind upon which he wants to play. The most advertised goods are women's toilet accessories or things that women use for preserving their youthful looks. Fat women are anxious to grow slim, so advertisers play upon women's fear of growing fat. Her giants squeak like new shoes, swollen with rheumatism at 30. So begins the advertisement of Crushing salts. Here is the beginning of the advertisement of Aldi Flu. Obesity, it is said, is the beginning of the end, and oversize embarrasses and endangers. For it puts blood, heart, liver, and muscles out of the body. Starve oneself thin, no use. Dissolve adipose tissue, yes. But the consequence? The semi-medical form of this advertisement gives it a great advantage over others. When we look underneath, we find that Alde fluid is a French preparation. Trust a Frenchman to know a woman's mind. If we take up any newspaper, we find scores of advertisements. I detest a shiny nose. That's why I use perfect nose powder. Girl, be sure of beauty. Beauty soap, Jean Harlow, and use here Vame toilet, the beauty soap of filling stars, gone and forever. Ugly and unwanted hair, fascinating curves that are height of fashion. The essence of feminine appear can be quickly yours through the set painters tasted here bust of fees. Right? Like this, okay, he has given here more information and how different advertisements are giving here captions. Is it clear? But you see, what is the main objective of the passage? Main objective generally here will be given, as I said here in the beginning or the end. Here, what is the main objective of this paragraph? Here, to study the mind of the advertiser and the motives of the human mind. Okay? Upon which he wants to play. So here, to study the mind of an advertiser, to list examples of advertisements common in newspapers, understand the consequence of dissolving adipose tissue, to state that women worry too much about their beauty. So what is the main objective of your passage here? This is here. Of course, all remaining are true, but the main objective of this passage is to study the mind of an advertiser. Right? Is it clear? It is given in the first sentence itself. And I will give you more examples here how to trace out the main point from the first sentence or the last sentence. Just let us move to the next passage. Very small passage, and tell me here. I will give you hints also here for note making, how you can make use of this paragraph for note making tips. See this one. A penny for your thoughts. If it's a 1943 copper penny, it could be worth as much as $50,000. In 1943, most pennies were made out of steel since copper was needed for World War II. So, the 1943 copper penny is ultra rare. Another rarity is 1955 double die penny. These pennies were mistakenly double stamped, so they have overlapping dates and letters. If it is uncirculated, it would easily fetch $25,000 at an auction. Now, that's a pretty penny. Now you see here, as I said here, what is the title here? Summarize this paragraph in one sentence, right, and give an appropriate title. So what is the main point here? That is only summary, right? So just by giving one point here, okay, you can summarize the entire paragraph, which is the main point of the paragraph, which is the opinion of the paragraph. See here, what is that? You know penny, what is the penny? Penny is just like currency. Here, like 1 paise. 100 paise are equal to 1 rupee, like 100 pennies are equal to $1, like that. Okay, it is just current. It is always here, penny means 100th of a dollar. Right? Then what does he want to say about a penny? He wants to say about the penny value. What is the penny value? It is 100th of a dollar. But what does he want to say? Value of the penny. Yeah, yes, sir, it is true. He wants to say the value of the penny. Regarding the value of the penny, what does he want to say again? Be specific and clearly explain the main idea. Right? See here, if you observe this paragraph, here is one hint. Penny for your thoughts. Why penny for our thoughts? Actually, penny value is 100th of a dollar. But you see here, he has given us two examples. 1943 copper penny, whose cost is $50,000. And he has given one more example, 1955 double die penny. And its cost is how much? $25,000. So, 1943 copper penny cost is $50,000. 1955 double die penny, okay, its cost is here $25,000. Why? Actually, those are not valid now. 1955 double die penny is double stamped. If it is double stamped, it is not valid here in circulation actually. Then why here some people are ready to pay $25,000? What about 1943 copper penny? Why it costs here $50,000? What is the reason? Because they are very rare. They have some history. they have some historical significance. 1943 copper penny is ultra rare because most of the coins during that World War II, okay, they were made of steel only. Copper penny was very rare. Is it clear? So it has some history. 1943 copper penny is very rare. Okay, it has great importance according to its history. Okay. So coin collectors who are fond of collecting coins, who are crazy of collecting coins here, rare coins, they are ready to pay $50,000. Is it clear? Even this 1955 double die penny also has some history. It is a double stamped, right? Here overlapping dates and letters, right? It has also some significance, rare. So due to the rarity, okay, among the coin collectors here, it has created some importance. Is it clear? So they are ready to pay $50,000 and $25,000. Is it clear? Right? For those coins. Here, so again see here, see the first sentence statement. The author wants to say penny value depends not just on its face value, but according to its rarity, according to its historical significance in one's thoughts. Penny value may be changed according to its importance in your thoughts. If you give more significance, more importance to its history, to its rarity, its cost may increase. If you don't give any importance, its cost may be like that only, 1/100th of a dollar. So here the author's intention is to say, to convey, penny value depends on one's thoughts. Okay, depends on its penny value, depends on its significance in one's thoughts, its importance in one's thoughts. Is it clear? I got it. For example, I will give you one more example. For example, here there is a cricket bat, and it is prepared, okay, long ago, 15 years old bat, 10 years old bat, right? And it is okay, placed here in a sports showroom, and its MRP is 5,000, right? So it is displayed. I go here to that shop here to purchase that bat here for my kids to play. I see this is an old bat here, almost damaged here, and no more useful to my kids. So I don't show any interest to pay 5,000. Even I'm not ready to pay for 500 also. But here there is some importance to that cricket bat. There is a signature of Yuvraj Singh on that bat, and the bat was used by Yuvraj Singh in the World Cup final. Is it clear? He hit 6 sixes, okay, with that bat in the World Cup final, and India won the game, and it has some historical significance. Some people who are crazy of cricket and also rich enough, they give more importance to its history. They are ready to pay 50,000 rupees for it. Some are crazy of Yuvraj Singh and also cricket. They are ready to pay 1 lakh for it, just to keep it as a token of memory. Is it clear? Right? So like that, the cost of the cricket bat changes according to its importance in one's thoughts. Here also same thing happens. Penny value changes according to its importance in one's thoughts. Right? That is the main idea, central idea. And supporting ideas, 1943 copper penny and 1955 double die penny, which fetched $50,000 and $25,000, okay, at an auction successfully. Right? So like this, you have to write the main point like this. Penny value depends on its importance in one's thoughts. but not just on its face value. That is the main point. Sub points here, supporting points of 1943 copper penny, 1955 double die penny. These are the supporting points. Like that you have to prepare here notes, main point, supporting points. Right? Now, here come to the next one. Same criteria here. Before you put on Angry Birds costume and exhaust yourself, roving from door to door, pondering for candy, take a minute to reflect on the tradition in which you are taking part. So, till now here we couldn't get any main point. Halloween is believed to have come from an ancient Celtic festival dating back 2000 years. November 1st was the Celtic New Year and marked the end of summer to the Celts. So they celebrated on its eve by wearing costumes made of animal skins and dancing around bonfires. Over the next 2 millennia, this primitive celebration grew to be a candy-filled costume ball that we know today. Okay? See this one. Here, this is regarding the Celtic festival. That is the New Year. Yeah, we know here the paragraph is about Celtic festival. But about Celtic festival, what does the author want to say? Okay. So what is given here? It's a celebration. Now how it is being celebrated and how it was celebrated in the past. By giving these two. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. See here. How, okay, it was celebrated here. They celebrated here in the past, they celebrated here. Let me tell you in the past how they celebrated. Yeah. No. Yeah. This one, how it was celebrated? They celebrated on its eve by wearing. This was how it was celebrated in the past. Okay? How it is being celebrated at present here. How? Putting Angry Birds costume, exhausting yourself, roving from door to door and exchanging candy. How it was celebrated in the past, how it is being celebrated at present. Are they same? No. Means there is a change in the tradition of the celebration of Celtic festival. Right? So that is given in the last one, you see. Right? Basically, over the next 2 millennia, this primitive celebration. What is the primitive celebration? By wearing costumes made of animal skins, dancing around bonfires. This is a primitive celebration. Grew to be a candy-fueled costume ball. Okay, costume ball means costume dance. Dance with costumes that we know today. So the main sentence, main point is given at the end. So, what can be the title here? Traditional changes in the celebration of Celtic festival. That is the title. So, how? So, the Celtic festival tradition has been changed from past to present. And that is given in the last 2 sentences. Last 2 lines. Over the next 2 millennia, this primitive celebration grew to be a candy-filled costume ball that we know today. What is the, you should be very clear, what is the primitive celebration? Okay? Yeah. What is we know today? You should be very clear. You have to write the same, okay, in 1 sentence. Right? The main idea of the paragraph is author wants to tell, okay, the changes in the primitive celebration of Celtic festival to the present known celebration. Right? Next one. Let us see here. When one hears the term reality applied to a television show, one might expect that the events portrayed occurred naturally or at least were not scripted. But this is not always the case. Many reality shows occur in unreal environments like rented mansions occupied by film crews. Such living environments do not reflect what most people understand to be reality. Worse, there have been accusations that events not captured on film were later restaged by producers. Worse still, some involved in the production of reality television claim that the participants were urged to act out storylines premeditated by producers. With such accusations floating around, it's no wonder many people take reality TV to be about as real as a sitcom. You see here. See the first sentence, whether you can get the main point or not sure. When one hears the term reality applied to a television show, one might expect here, one might expect that events portrayed, events, what events? Events of the reality show portrayed occurred naturally or at least not scripted. Now, means the events in the reality show, we think they occurred naturally. Means without any pre-plan, pre-script. Is it clear? These are not scripted. Okay, they occurred naturally. We think like that. But this is not always true. This, what is this here? The reality is not always true. In the reality shows, reality is not always true. Right? Means, we think reality shows means, okay, just without any pre-plan, without any script, okay, they occur naturally. We think like that. But this is not always true. Means in most of the reality shows, there is no reality. Author wants to say that one. That is the main point. Got it? This is not always the truth. This means the reality according to our expectation. What we expect, these are not scripted, they occurred naturally. That is our expectation. That is not true. Right? So, that is the main point. Can you trace out the supporting points here? Yeah, let me tell you here supporting points. First one, many reality shows occur in the unreal environments. You see here. Many reality shows occur in the unreal environment. This is one. Right? First supporting point. Right? Second one. Events not captured on film. Okay? Not captured on film were later restaged by the producers. This is a second supporting point. Right? Third supporting point. Okay. Participants were urged to act out the storylines premeditated by the producers. So these are the 3 points, supporting points. First one is many reality shows occur in the unreal environments. Second one, the events not captured on film were later restaged by producers. Then sometimes participants were urged to act out storylines premeditated by producers. These are the supporting points to say that in most of the reality shows, there is no reality. Passage 8. It is estimated that over 20 million pounds of candy corn are sold in the US each year. Brags, the top manufacturer, sells enough candy corn to circle the earth 4.2 times if each piece were laid end to end. That's a lot of candy corn. But that's nothing compared to Tootsie Roll production. Over 64 million Tootsie Rolls are produced every day. But even Tootsie Rolls have got nothing on the candy industry's staple product, chocolates. Confectioners manufacture over 20 billion pounds of chocolate in the United States each year. Now, that's a mouthful. Now again here, what is the main point of the paragraph? Regarding the candy. Okay. Regarding candy, what does he want to say? See here, what is given? Can you get here the main point in the first sentence? No. Right? In the main point, in the first sentence, example is given. Second sentence also one example is given. Third sentence also another example is given. So, all these are the examples in the beginning only. Examples of what? Examples of sales of the candy. Examples of the sale. How the sales of the candy? Very high. And even the manufacturers produce a lot of candy. Okay? And their sales are given here in the passage. Right? So those are the examples. And the main point is here in the given in the end. Now that's a mouthful. That's a mouthful means plenty. Sufficient. More than sufficient. Mouthful indirect meaning is more than sufficient. Right? So what is the main point here? Plenty of candy, a mouthful of candy is produced every year in the US. Right? That is the main point. A mouthful of candy is produced every year in the US. Is it clear? This is the main point. And supporting point here, you can take here the production of different manufacturers. This first one is Brax, the top manufacturer, and how much he produces here, that is given. Next one is here Tootsie Roll production. Next one is here Candy Industries staple product chocolates. This is also candy. Right? These are the examples to support the main point. So in this paragraph, the main point is coming at the end, and the supporting points are those three examples. Right? So here, if you are able to trace out this main point, after reading each paragraph, write the main point. Okay, in just not even in the sentence, just only one phrase. Plenty of candy produced each year in US. Okay, supporting points, Brax production, and next Tootsie Rolls production, and industries staple product chocolate production. Just to give these examples. That's it. Okay. Now let us come to the last one. Right. See this one. Passage 9. There are many types of lethal venom in the animal kingdom, but perhaps no stranger carrier than the platypus. The platypus is one of the few venomous mammals. Males carry a venom cocktail in their ankle spurs that incapacitates the victims with excruciating pain. Stranger still, the platypus is the only mammal that uses electroreception. What this means is that the platypus uses its bill to sense the electricity produced by the muscular movements of its prey. Right? The platypus neither sees, hears, nor smells its prey while hunting, but rather pursues it through electroreception. Perhaps the most odd, the platypus is the only mammal that lays eggs rather than giving birth to live young. The platypus is an odd creature. Right? So now here, trace out the main point here. What is the main point? The platypus is an odd creature. Here in the last sentence, you got it. How it is a odd creature? It is venomous, one of the few venomous mammals. This is the oddity, right? And more than this one, it uses electroreception, right? This is second odd feature. Is it clear? This is the only mammal that uses electroreception. Other mammals don't use they don't have electroreceptors. Right? Next one. Here the only mammal that lays eggs rather than giving birth to live young. So all mammals give birth to live youngs only, but only this platypus lays eggs. Is it clear? These three are the odd features. So how can you hear? Okay, what is the title? Platypus, the odd creature. Subpoints, what are the subpoints here? Right? One of the few venomous mammals, only mammal that uses electroreception, only mammal that lays eggs. These are the supporting points. Right, guys? So this is the way of tracing out the main point and subpoints. If you have this clarity, how to identify the main point and subpoints for each paragraph, you can prepare notes. Is it clear? And while preparing notes also, don't write the sentences because it's of no use. Again here when you have to revise that that lesson from your notes, if you prepare the notes in sentence form, it takes a lot of time to revise, to read those sentences. So never take notes in the sentence form. Just take them, just like words or phrases, bullet points, flow chart or tree diagram, according to your convenience. As your lecturers write on the board here, just only main points without writing the sentences. They write here main points on the board in the form of tree diagram or flow chart. You also prepare the notes in the same way. But remember, you have to trace out main point for each paragraph and subpoints for each paragraph. Like that, for one essay, you can prepare notes in half page of your notebook. Is it clear? Like that, for each lesson, for each topic, if you prepare notes for your entire textbook, you can prepare notes just within 40 pages or 50 pages, covering all main points and subpoints. Right? Just in the form of flow chart or tree diagram or table or according to your convenience. So that during the examination time, it becomes easy to revise. Just within 2-3 hours, you can revise the entire 40 pages because it is prepared by you. Just by seeing the main points and subpoints, you can recall all the information. Then it becomes easy to remember those points, easy to write here, that in the form of essay. If it is a lengthy essay, you can expand that. If it is a small one, you can reduce it, covering all important points. And your marks will depend on how many important points you have covered, in that answer. Right? This is needed for preparation to get a high score in exams. Right, guys? Here, let us stop here this one. Thank you. And love literature and love here this one. Improve your reading skills and make use of these skills, in reading your textbook. Right? Thank you, guys.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.